First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you very much for joining us. We are live streaming here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom, as we do every weekday starting around 1 p.m. We go throughout the afternoon, and we cover a wide range of topics on here. If you have been a frequent watcher of our show, you've probably seen us talk about Oregon Black Pioneers and their organization here before. We're going to get into that, and we're going to explain that organization to you in case you don't know. Really cool historical group here documenting so much of the history of this region, and that includes now a new festival that is coming up in October called York Fest. What is that? We're going to find out during this segment, because joining us right now we have Zachary Stocks, the executive director. And Zachary, always great to have you here on the show to just talk about all the work that you do. And I want to get into York Fest and explain to everybody what that is. But before we do, would you mind, for people who don't know, just talk a little bit about Oregon Black Pioneers and all the work that you do?
You bet, Greg. So Oregon Black Pioneers is a nonprofit educational historical society. We are based in Portland. We were founded in Salem, and we've been around since 1993. So for more than 30 years now, we've been working really hard to illuminate the stories of people of African descent in every part of Oregon, with going back to the very earliest days of people of African descent coming here as part of trade ships, right up to the turn of the last century.
Which it is so many amazing stories that you've uncovered, and I know, we've talked about this before, but just all the research that goes into that, because when you get back to some of those, pre-things really being written down well, that means going into buildings, going through archives, going through newspapers, and a lot of word of mouth, I would imagine, right, to get a lot of these stories.
Oh, absolutely. I would say that we actually have learned more from members of the community who have shared information from their own family histories with us than we have from information we've uncovered ourselves. But it is really a mix of sources. I mean, it could be personal letters, it could be photographs. Of course, architectural history and building information has contributed to what we know about the stories of Black people in Oregon. Anywhere there is Black history, we want to find it, and we compile every kind of resource we can get our hands on.
Which seems to be pretty much everywhere in Oregon. There is that history, and that includes going all the way back to the Lewis and Clark expedition, and that's what I want to talk about here now. For people who don't know, can you tell us about who York was, and a little bit of that history, I think, for everybody, just to go into that.
Absolutely. So York was the only Black member of the Lewis and Clark expedition. As many people know, only 33 people were able to complete the journey from the Missouri River to the Pacific Ocean and make their way back towards St. Louis, and York was one of them. They first came through what is today Portland in late October, early November of 1805, spent the winter at what is today Astoria, and then made the quick journey, just 6 months, to get back to Missouri. York's story for over 200 years really went untold, and if York did come up, it was in ways that sort of presented him as sort of like a mascot of the expedition, or if he was there to be the cook, or just a servant or entertainment. But the reality is, when you look at the journals themselves, you find that York contributed to the success of the expedition to the same extent as every other member. And we're here to really give a lot of credit to his story through some of the events that we've got lined up this October.
What were some of the challenges of the research for finding out about York and his life and getting that accurate representation of what he was doing there with that expedition?
In some ways, we're actually really fortunate. I think that as a shorthand, people sometimes will say, well, we don't really know that much about York. But truthfully, we know more about York than we do most members of Lewis and Clark's Corps of Discovery, because his name does come up in the Lewis and Clark journals a good number of times, and it's mentioned several times in Clark family sources before and after the Lewis and Clark expedition. So because of that, we do have a pretty strong foundation of some of York's characteristics, the way he looked, but also the humanity that he displayed, the agency that he put out for himself to be able to ask for his freedom, but unfortunately was not granted it by William Clark, who owned him. And so in some ways the work is difficult. We have to sort of fill in the gaps and what we don't know based on our best interpretations and our understanding of the context for Black history at the time. But on the other hand, we have rich resources that we can turn to help to acknowledge this first black ancestor of what is today Portland.
Amazing. I mean, so to that extent, with all of this research and this information that you have, tell us about the festival and how you maybe came about this idea for it and what's involved with that.
For sure. So last year, our team started thinking, all right, we want to do a big York-related event in 2025. And we didn't know what it was going to be yet. And as we started to sit down and start to think through what we might be able to do, we found out that a lot of other organizations, in particular Black-led organizations in the Portland area, were similarly interested in York. And some of them were even working on some existing York-related programs. So rather than us all independently working on York events without communicating with one another, Oregon Black Pioneers brought these different groups together to try and market all of this as one combined experience. So it's a multi-day festival with individual events throughout that time period hosted by different Black-led artists, nonprofits, community activist organizations, all of which are focused on the experiences of York.
That's amazing. So everybody was kind of working on that themselves. You're like, hey, let's group this all together and bring everybody back, to under one umbrella for this. So talking about York Fest, talking about some of these different individual groups that are going on, can you go through those and let us know, who some of these different organizations are and how this is all working together?
For sure. So some of the faces that we just saw on screen there include Vin Chambry, who is the creative voice behind the Alberta House in the neighborhood. He has a one-man show called The Unraveling of York, which he's going to be presenting snippets of, and then sitting in conversation with the sculptor Todd McGrain, who erected the York bust that was put up in Mount Tabor and then, of course, destroyed shortly after. Aaron Nigel Smith is working on a folk opera, and the world premiere of that opera, called York the Explorer, will debut at the Research Center in Beaverton on October 24th, and it'll be showing on the 24th and 25th. There is Hassan Davis, the nationally renowned, probably the most talented and well-known York living history interpreter in the nation. He'll be coming out to give his one-man performance also at the Alberta House during the week. And there'll also be a festival within a festival called the Our Rooted Futures Festival, hosted by the York Collective, a group of community members that have been working to tell York's story for several years, and in particular activate the area on York Street in Northwest Portland. There's a lot going on, and the best way to find out is to visit the yorkfest.com website to see the full lineup and event details.
Amazing. So that's going to be happening in October 17th to the 25th. I believe are those dates. Yeah, so a week-long celebration of that. I mean, at the end of the day, so people can be aware of this now that's coming up in October, so all these different things that you can take part in and explore that history. What do you think is the most important thing that people should know about York just going into this and just understanding who he was?
I think it's important that we recognize that York contributed just as capably to the success of the Lewis and Clark expedition as all of the other members of that experience. And in some ways, he represented a different process that the United States could have introduced itself to the native peoples of the West, because York was very respected by many tribes that they encountered. Some called him Big Medicine because his appearance and his abilities seems like they must have been supernatural, or they were of great importance, right? And so the fact that York showed up with respect and compassion to communities that were meeting members of the United States for the first time, it really is a counterpoint to some of the interactions that followed the Lewis and Clark expedition. And so I think that York really gives us a different perspective to think about this moment in time, and also the context for Black history in Oregon. It goes back a lot earlier than most people realize.
It truly does. Well, Zachary, thank you so much, for joining us to give us a preview of that, and just for everybody out there too. So it's yorkfest.com. And for people who want to know more about the Oregon Black Pioneers organization, what's the best way for them to do that?
That would be to go to our website, which is OregonBlackPioneers.org. And we're also on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, we're pretty easy to find, I would say. And chances are we're coming to a town near you, no matter where you are in the state, because our team is on the road delivering Black history programming 365 days a year.
Fantastic. And as we mentioned at the beginning, hearing from other people in communities, if they have some history maybe to share, is that the best way for them to reach out to?
It is, yeah. On our website, we have a contact form. People can send us an email there, and we want to hear stories. We want to learn more about the Black communities, the Black businesses around places that maybe no one had heard about before. The surprising stories are the ones that really have the most impact for us. So we want to have relationships with people around the state who care deeply about these stories too.
Well, Zachary, thank you so much for joining us here at Fox 12 Now to talk about this. Congrats on getting this set up. Looking forward to that in October to celebrate York. And yeah, thanks for being here with us.
Thanks, Greg. Really appreciate it.
And for everybody watching, again, this is Fox 12 Now. We are live streaming here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. We appreciate you joining us and being a part of this show. And don't forget to download that Fox 12 Oregon app. You can watch this segment that we just had right here and everything else that we do there, or at kptv.com, or some of our older stuff is on YouTube as well, on the YouTube Fox 12 Oregon channel there. You can find all of our segments. So thanks for being here. We're going to be back live at 1:30 if you're watching live right now, talking about an organization that helps you select different teacher projects to donate to help those projects come to fruition. So that's at 1:30, and then plenty more throughout the afternoon. If there's breaking news, we'll have that as well. We'll sign off for right now. I'll talk to you soon. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.